First of all, let's start with thank you for being here.
Yes, no problem.
I think the last time we met was back in Estonia a few years ago,
Yeah.
and it was really cool to discover all the work you've done and you're still doing. And I follow all your posts, and
Yeah.
I think there's some really cool stuff that you've done. And I want us to go into just quickly, like, give us a bit of background. How did you end up working in music? Like, what was the start and to where you are today?
Yeah, my story is a non-typical story because I was an athlete till I was 18. So I played tennis at a semi-professional level. I traveled all around Europe playing tournaments. I ranked top 20 in the country. So I was very focused on, being the best athlete I could be. But with that, I got trained and like programmed to always try to take it one step further than physically was possible, pretty much. I think that gave me the drive to try to facilitate people being the best version of themselves. And instead of me doing it in sports, just because there were so many different people that came onto my path that had to do with music, and they will all ask me, was I in the music industry without me being in it? Um, at one point, I was like, there must be something about me and the music industry that just fits. And so I won a scholarship when I was in high school. I won a scholarship to go to the US and study in the US for 1 year. I'd always dreamt about going to the US. My parents had no money, so I wasn't, it wasn't likely that I was able to do so. But I entered into a competition, a worldwide competition. I won the competition writing an essay about Nelson Mandela, and that provided me with a scholarship for a year. So I ended up going to the US for a year. I had the best time of my life, got confronted with a whole bunch of stuff. One of the things being, you are not just a human being, you're a black female, and that influences your life. Because up until that point, I grew up in a pretty much white environment. And so I knew I was different. I love being different. And so never realized that being born black will affect how other people perceive you. And so being in the South in the US, it was an interesting 1994. It was an interesting experience where there was actual segregation, but not by law, but by culture, right? And so I will go into into having dinner at the cafeteria, and the white people will be sitting on this side, and then at a certain hour, black people started coming in, and then the white people would disappear. So even though it wasn't done by law, it's still the group still separated themselves. Me, I was from Europe and I grew up with white people, so I didn't care. When I was hungry, I would go eat. So I was being revolutionary even back then because people were like, what is she doing? Why is she already in here? And she already ate. So that means she ate with the white folks. Like, what is wrong with her? And I'd be like, and I would sit there and wait for the change of, I guess, colors of people. And then I would hang out with the black kids and just chill because I just was always focused on, people being positive. And so anyway, to take that with me, I started studying for my master's degree in communication science in the Netherlands once I returned from the US, and realized that I think I think I have a gift when it comes to networking, informal networking. So not networking focused on, oh, let's make money, but networking on focused on being interested in humans and wanting to know what makes them tick, what makes them happy, how are their thought processes. I'm just interested in people, I guess. And so I think the combination of being interested in people, having been trained to get the best out of myself, and the personality I have, I wanted to support and facilitate other people to become the best version of themselves, because that's what I always try to do, to be the best version of myself. And so the avenue became music, just because a bunch of people came onto my path, like I said, and pretty much dragged me into the music industry. And it would be funny because I will go to the US and we'll go on vacation, and literally I would stay in Jamaica, Queens, and every time I would walk out of the house and I would talk to somebody longer than 10 minutes, it would be somebody that would be deeply rooted into the industry, like Grammy Award winning producers, some major rappers that just pulled up on me I was walking on the sidewalk. They just started talking to me. It was really weird. And so, after a year of that, I was like, I just need to research. I just need to figure out what this music industry exactly entails, and if that is really something for me. Because everybody that I met was always like, "You're not in the music industry? That's so strange, because your personality fits the music industry," whatever the hell that means. And so I was in a dance group, in a step group, American Step. So we would make beats with our hands and our bodies. And I ended up performing at a bunch of different places in the Netherlands. And this girl came up to me and she was like, "Yo, um, I want to manage you guys." I was like, "Manage us? What are you gonna do for us? I can do that myself. You're gonna introduce me to some people that do parties? I know everybody in the country that does parties, because I just love going out, and because I was so social, I pretty much met everybody. So I was like, I can do that myself." And she was like, "Well, how is that possible? You look so young and blah blah blah." I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm not retarded. I can do a little bit of booking some shows for a dance group. It's not that difficult." And she said, "Well," and I explained to her I had just been in the US and I just came home. And she was like, "Well, that's amazing, because I have a job interview with a record label tomorrow, and the CEO is an American. Would you want to come with me?" I said, "Why am I coming with you to your job interview? That's a little weird, don't you think?" And she was like, "Yeah, but my English is not that great and yours is." I said, "Well, that sounds like I wouldn't want to do that as a CEO, do a job interview with somebody that needs a translator. That's strange." I was like, "Well, call him. If he says, fine, I don't know you, but I'll go with you." So I went with her the next day to her job interview. I ended up getting hired, and the guy is like, "Yeah, I just need one person for the job, and I think you're better than her, so I'll just get you." I was like, "Nah, I can't do that." And this is something that I continued on in the music industry. I do not do bad business, right? Because I'm like, I'm coming here to help her for her job interview. It's cool that you think I'm better qualified than her, but that makes no sense. Like, I'm not here for a job interview, and I'm definitely not here to cross this girl that took me into her job interview. So I was like, nah. I said, I can help you, but you have to hire her. That's what we're here for. I said, "It sounds like a super cool company and stuff. So I can, I'm still in school, so I can intern here and help out left and right. But only if she gets hired, because if she doesn't get hired, I have no desire to work here." Even though I didn't know, I had just met her the day before, and the opportunity sounded really cool. But I was like, "Nah, that's not cool. You don't cross people like that." And up until this day, I do great business. I think people forget, especially when there's money involved, people forget who put them in that position, who helped them, who they have the relationships with. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've been able to, to deal with people in the music industry for the last 20 plus years, is because I do good business.
Yeah, yeah. And so when you started, this was the beginning point, right? This
Yeah.
is when you
The
started getting into the industry.
Yeah.
I saw that you're a radio host. I
Yes.
saw that there's so many things you've done that it's just like I was looking and I was like, wow, this is proper, like a whole story, you know?
Yeah,
So
and the funny part about it is I want to say the connecting thing in all these different things that I've done is always, helping people to be their best selves. Because even on the radio, my radio show started because I went to promote an event, a talent show, and I went to promote it at radio. And the guy that was owning the radio station heard my voice and was like, "Okay, you need to be on radio." I'm like, "Why?" And he was like, I'm just telling you, your voice will resonate with people. And I was like, well, I know I have I have a very unique, let's say unique voice. So I was like, that sounds retarded, but hey, if you think so and I can help people, get exposure on the radio, I'm all for it. I said, but the only show I want to do is a show where I can highlight talent, because that's what I want to do. I want to create opportunities for people to shine.
Yeah.
Even with my radio show, where other people were doing, I have to play the biggest hits and I was focused on, and I said, if not, then I'm not going to do it, because that's not, I'm here to do that. And if the radio show supports that, I'm cool with it. I don't have ambitions to be in radio. I have ambitions to, to showcase people. And so they let me do my thing, and it ended up being the best listened to radio show on that station. Then they were like, yo, we have to do it this and this way. I was like, nah, if I have to do it that way, I just don't want to do it. So I quit that radio station. And while calling another radio station to promote talent again, they were like, aren't you, the main voice on this popular radio station over here? And I was like, yeah, but I quit my job. And they were like, yo, we're hiring. And I'm like, literally within like 2 days. And I was like, okay. I said, but this is what I want to do. I want to highlight talent and And they was like, you can do whatever you want to do. I was like, all right, cool. So I switched radio station. And then the second radio station was attached to the largest pop station in the country. And so they said, what else do you want to do? I said, I want to interview artists, because I want to know what their real journeys were to get where they are right now. Because I thought highlighting their journeys would help other people to build their journeys more stable.
Yeah.
And so, not because I wanted to associate with famous people, because I couldn't care less. But I knew that by them telling their story, it would probably help other people with their stories. And so the guy was like, okay, well, you're hired. The first day at work, like after like a week or so, he called me, the CEO called me, and he was like, Henca, I have an interview today, but I can't make it, because he was also the program director for the pop station. He was like, can you do it for me? First day at work. I was like, of course. He said, I said, who am I interviewing? He said, Mariah Carey, which was at the high point of her career. And I was like, Mariah Carey, are you kidding me? On my first day at work? And he was like, yep. I was like, when am I interviewing her? He's like, in 3 hours. I was like, okay. Because I was an hour and a half away from Amsterdam. I had to still figure out, what was in her resume, because obviously I knew the songs, but I didn't know her story. Yeah. So I had to study it and blah, blah, blah. I went there and I did the interview, and it was the best interview, one of the best interviews she's ever done. So the interview went global, because it was the first time she talked about her marriage to Tommy Mottola. And so everybody was like, how in the world did you get Mariah Carey to talk about her marriage to Tommy Mottola? Because it was on the list of restricted topics, and I still went there. But because I had such a connection with her, she allowed me. And she looked at her manager, and even the manager was right there. And the manager was like, if a day to talk about it, this is probably the best day. Because I wasn't there to try to, sensationalize what was going on. I was just trying to get her real story. Yeah. And so because of it, it allowed me to build a radio career, because of my connection and my genuine interest in people, whether they're super big stars, because I ended up interviewing everybody from Lil Wayne to Chris Brown, from Pharrell to like pretty much everybody in the urban space I interviewed.
And then from there, you then switched, you left the radio space after a few years, and then you started up Epitome Entertainment.
So it's the other way around. I started Epitome, or it's actually Epitome Entertainment, which means the highest. It's okay. It means the highest achievable. No, I started with Epitome Entertainment, which was the talent show where people could just come into the prettiest theaters in the Netherlands and showcase their talent. And because I wanted to promote Talent Night, I ended up going to the radio station promoting the show. And that's where the guy heard my voice. So while in radio, I was still doing Talent Night for Epitome Entertainment, and we were building the company while I was on radio, and it really helped because obviously when you're on radio twice a week,
Yeah.
people associate with you, and you're talking about what you're doing that weekend, and they hear that you're putting events together, they show up. So the events became more and more successful while I was also on the radio. I was on radio for about 10 years.
And with Epitome and on the radio, was the focus, because I know you have a great focus on hip hop music.
Yeah, urban.
Was what urban? We'll get to that because I also want to go into the terminology of
Yeah,
urban.
yeah.
Before that, I want to go into the music you focused on first of all. So was it always in what you would call hip hop and urban and so on? First of all, and second of all, have you seen that evolve in the past 20 years in the Netherlands?
Yeah, definitely. So the two different things, yes. So the talent show that we first started with was actually a talent show based on all, let's say, urban arts. So black, music of black origin, dance of black origin. So we would have break dancers, we will have spoken word artists, we will have R&B singers, gospel. We would have even magicians that had some sort of street, I called it street arts back then. So they had some sort of association with, but at the same time, I didn't exclude anybody, right? But because we came from that culture, our network came from that culture, but we've had rock bands, we've had like the weird, like we've had, ballerinas, anybody that wanted to utilize that space that we created, that talent space, in a nice theater in front of lots of people, they were allowed. So it wasn't like, oh, you're not hip hop, so you can't do it. No, it was just anybody can do it. But because we came from the hip hop culture, most of the acts, definitely, I want to say 85% of the acts probably came out of some sort of, from, like I said, from MCing to breakdancing to regular hip hop dance to anything that you can imagine that had to do with black culture.
From this point forward, I wanted to know, in the Netherlands, are most of these artists performing in Dutch? And what's your take on them performing in English? Like, what do you think is important, and what do you think is a good balance, or should they do both?
So at first it started with everybody in the Netherlands trying to copy what was going on in the US. So people were rapping rapping in English. The clothes looked the same. The videos, looked like a cheap version of what we were seeing coming from the US. Everybody was trying to pretend to be, Biggie or Tupac or whatever else. So it was a direct copy and a lot of times a weak copy of what was going on in the US. Then there was and that's when that's why it didn't really pop off, because people were rapping about situations that wasn't in existence in the Netherlands, right? And because hip hop is about your reality and talking about what you are going through, that didn't really resonate that much. It worked for a certain group of people, but a lot of people wasn't relating to it because they were like, you're rapping about having grown up in the ghetto, which there's only one ghetto in the Netherlands and you don't live in it. So what are you talking about? So the main thing about hip hop being authenticity and telling your story wasn't being honored. So it didn't really click. And so what you started seeing is there was this whole wave of English hip hop done by Dutch artists, and then it started a wave of English artists that were doing R&B. And one of the English R&B groups, Dutch English R&B groups, actually got signed to Motown at that time. So, which was very interesting because it was one of the first international acts signed to Motown. But because of such a strong connection between the US and Amsterdam, and people loving to come to Amsterdam because of all the the liberal outlooks on life, let's say. So the labels will come here, all the big artists will perform here from the States. And so there grew some sort of relationship between the Dutch hip hop and urban scene, R&B scene, and the American one. So halfway through that, the first Dutch speaking groups started because they realized that they can't express themselves as well in English as they can in Dutch. So they just decided, if I want to be true to myself, if I get up in the morning, I don't speak English. So let me just rap in my own language.
Okay, and have you do you feel that that's seen more success
No,
today?
definitely. The
Yeah.
the number one genre in the Netherlands has been hip hop for the last 6 years. The number
Oh,
one by far. Spotify numbers outrank the hip hop outranks everything by far. The top
oh,
10 albums every week is like eight out of the 10 are hip hop albums. And out of the
really?
eight, there might be one or two American albums, and there are six Dutch ones. And the American ones is always at the bottom.
Really? That's
And it,
amazing.
and
Those
it,
are crazy numbers.
yeah, and we have crazy numbers. The Dutch hip hop acts that are really popular, they're doing 30 million, 40 million streams per release.
That's amazing. That's
So they're beating American B stars with their numbers, and we only have 18 million people in the country, and they're spitting in Dutch.
with those numbers, with the fact that it's in Dutch, with the evolution you've mentioned, how people switched from English to Dutch, and how the artists have suddenly been developing. At this point, is that when you decided you're going to start New School Rules, or
No, we
how,
decided
how did that start?
we started New School Rules in 2009, and the reason we started New School Rules is we were doing all these talent development programs in the Netherlands, and we kept seeing three developments that I couldn't understand why that was happening. First of all, I would see the same amazing talent, and when I'm talking about singing, like people that are incredible, that will sing circles around some of the major stars from the US, right? I would continue to see the same people participating in the same talent shows year after year after year after year. You know, so I could draw the conclusion that people are not elevating themselves from amateur level to semi-professional to actually professional so they can live off of music. That started to worry me because I was like, even though I love seeing the same faces, why are they not progressing from talent to professional? That was number one. Then the second thing I started to realize is that these talented creatives had no idea what the business behind the industry was like. So I see people left and right signing the craziest deals, locking themselves up for 10 years at a time, with no advance, like the weirdest deals people got entrapped in. And then when I started asking all these creatives what is going on, why are you signing these retarded deals? Why are you not understanding that you can have the best product, but if you don't do any promo, the product is not going anywhere. It's just going to sit on the shelves. And then the feedback to these questions was, we have no knowledge about the business behind the music. That was number one. That's why they weren't progressing. We artistically know what we're doing, but we have no network to utilize and maximize our success to the next level because we don't know anybody who can help us with it. So I said to myself, and it became a day job to advise people on how to move. And then the other thing was that people kept asking me, can you introduce me to this person? You know this person. Can you introduce me to this person? You know this person. Why don't you do this for me? Why don't you do that? And I'm only one person. So
Yeah,
I said to myself, how can I create a situation where these things come together? So people get business knowledge, people are able to network for themselves, and people can showcase their talents. Because that was the other thing. There was not enough places where they could showcase their talent so they can get discovered, right?
yeah,
And so there would not be enough performance places. So they were incredible, but they might only perform 5 times a year.
yeah.
And that's why I decided to do New School Rules.
Okay.
Um, I got inspired by the Vibe seminar for New School Rules, which was Quincy Jones's magazine's music seminar,
Okay.
where I got well, I kind of snuck in um, using somebody else's credentials and got a feeling of, what it is like to see people like you. You know what I'm saying? That look like you, that speak like you, that dress like you, that are very successful in this industry, to give you the inside information on how to navigate the music industry. And so I was like, this will be incredible in the Netherlands, but I knew the Netherlands wasn't ready for it at that point. So I set on the idea for like 3 years. And then once I started realizing everybody was getting stuck in the Netherlands, I was like, now it's the time to roll it out, to start trying to get funding for it and to put it together. So the first edition was in 2009 already. So the development of everybody doing Dutch language speaking hip hop, it didn't start until, I mean, the first one started 20 years ago, but the successful ones didn't start until about 5 to 7 years ago.
Okay. And so now that with new school rules, obviously you are now exposed to many different types of new talent that you probably never heard of. I've seen that there's a lot of delegates who go there. There's a lot of cool, like,
Speakers.
panels and speakers and so on. Like, it really has a like a proper value for the artists.
It does. No, it does. And not only for the artists, which is funny because the value is on three levels. The first value is for the speakers because they are so high profile speakers that the speakers get to network with each other, which a lot of times they never get a chance to really get to know each other
Yeah.
because all of them are so high profile and so respected and so busy in their daily lives that people that have known each other for years never get to spend 3 days in a row with each other, right? And so not only are they there to share that knowledge, but they're actually also gaining better and deeper relationships with the panel members also. But the delegates obviously get to listen to all this knowledge, ask questions, interact on a human level because it's 3 days. And the artists that are showcasing get to showcase for people that can change their lives, people that can sign them to record deals up to $1 million right there and then. So so I feel like there's 1,200 people coming over 3 days at this time. We were gonna do the 8th edition this year. So and the festival now, with in all smaller venues and a small outside stage, but so much going on during the day and at nighttime that we draw about 10,000 people over 3 days with the festival part of New School Rules. So it's grown and there's people coming from 26 different countries. So that's the other value of it. Not only are there high profile speakers, but the delegates as well as the speakers are coming from so many different places. So you might catch the A&R or the head of A&R Def Jam Southeast Asia as well as the one from New York. So if you're trying to go into the Asian market, the American one might not be interesting for you, but definitely the one in Malaysia. And so we try to create value for the speakers as well as the delegates as well as the performing artists.
Given that you've now been able to discover so many artists and bring them to prominence, you started managing artists as well.
Yeah.
And I saw that you manage producers as well, which is something that's not very common. So I wanted to know how do you choose the artists you manage? I mean, if you're exposed to so many, which ones are you choosing, first of all, based on, and second of all, under what entity are you doing it? Are you doing it under you as Henca, or under Epitome, or under New School Rules? How does it work?
Right. So so let's go to the second question first. So I've done it under Epitome. I've done it under another company that I own. I've done it under my personal title. It because it's all me. So it just depends on what makes sense at that given moment. I stopped managing for a little bit And I just like this week signed, I got the contract in for one artist from LA called Hallelujah today. And I signed somebody else this past Sunday, a rapper from Daytona Beach. His name is Crown. And I'm about to sign the third act next week. So I stopped for a little bit, but because my drive comes from, you know, people living their best lives and people being the best versions of themselves, I always have to start when I see, and this is answering your other question, when do I pick somebody? There's a couple of things that I had to learn. First of all, talent is not the deciding factor for me to manage somebody anymore, because I realize somebody can have the biggest talent in the world, but if they're not willing to work and their work ethic is, you know, is good, and they're not able to deal with people, and they have no time of respect for people's time, and those type of things, I cannot deal with them, because it kills my business relationships. It gets me very frustrated. And once I realize that, you know, I care more about your career than you do, it is time to no longer work with you.
Yeah, because that was something else I was going to ask you now. Given that you've gone into management again, and I wanted to see things are changing with the virus. Some concerts are happening left and right. People are now using the internet much more. There's live stream shows everywhere. Suddenly, everyone has to be a bit more creative. And I wanted to see, what would you give as advice for artists today? Like, if you had to tell them something that can resonate with the current situation.
To just go online and do a concert with no type of plan, strategy, or anything behind it makes no sense right now, right? Because you're giving away content that has value and that you make promoters pay for. So
Yeah.
even though it's super important to stay connected to your audience, doing free shows back to back to back every 2-3 days is not the way to do it.
Okay.
Because now you're doing shows in the same location, it looking the exact same way. It doesn't have a value. What has value is to talk to your audience, to have them ask questions, you know, to have them think with you or be a part of your creative process. Help them decide on, for instance, or they can help you decide on what picture you're going to use as your layout picture for your next project. What song or snippet of a song they like best, so you should release first. You being in the studio spitting a verse, for instance, and them on IG Live, for instance, responding to if they liked your verse or not. You know what I mean? Draw them into your process, because just playing your shows like you will do live is just giving away free content. And because the industry is looking for ways to monetize these online performances right now, as long as they don't, you don't want to give away these free shows over and over and over again, because in the end of the day, by the time they figure out how to really monetize shows online, nobody's interested in your show anymore, because you've done it a million times preparation to these monetized paid shows. So I would advise people to try to stay away from it as much as possible. Now,
Okay.
I'm not saying to not do any music online, but you can try to do covers. You can try to do one song maybe, or half of a song, and, you know, dibble and dabble with it. But more so as I want to connect with you with my music and talk to you at the same time, because this is a great time for your fans to get to know the person behind the music.
I'm an advocate of this. I always tell artists that if they're creating content that's being fastly consumed, so people look at it, you know, for like 2 seconds and they
Yeah,
scroll. So if they're doing that, so the content they create has to be fastly created as
yeah.
well. They
Never
shouldn't
too long. Yeah,
yeah, and they should create enough of it. Like, one post should be, as you said, maybe What do you guys think? Should I focus more on a red image or a blue image, or something like that, something random? But yeah, I wanted to see, do you believe that they should be creating? I mean, you do. I can see from what you're saying, but more content without it being necessarily related to live streams. Have you seen examples of this that work for you?
I mean, I think there were a couple of artists that were super successful with creating content, but not giving away their music for free. Like, for instance, and I mean, it was wretched, but it worked. Tory Lanez had the coronavirus movement going with his lives, where he would get girls to just, act like strippers. And his stream at one point was like 500,000 people at the same time live. He would play music in the background. He would play some of the new stuff, like snippets of some of the new stuff, but nobody was really focused on it, but he was throwing it in there.
Okay.
He went from 6 million followers on Instagram to 10 million followers in like 3 weeks
Wow.
by just creating content where he would have girls put up their Cash App, they would just shake their booties, and they would make money. He would have entertained viewers. He had all these celebrities tuning in. Then he would pull them into the IG live, talk to them for a second, and then go back to the next girl. And everybody was winning because it was entertaining. People didn't have to think about all the craziness going on in the world. The girls that were normally, a lot of them, I think, are strippers that couldn't work, that wasn't making any money, all of a sudden it was making great money because 500,000 people, if 100 people or 200 people give $5, boom, it's $1,000 that you now have in your pocket that you didn't have before. I mean, they had to stay, they had to keep their thongs or whatever on, so it wasn't even naked. It was ways for people to pay for their bills.
Yeah.
Um, he would tease the fact that there was a new album coming out or whatever, but not in a way where it was like, okay, damn, promo, and people would
Yeah.
step
Yeah.
away. People thought it was cool because he was giving them entertainment, right? And so by the time the album dropped, he didn't have to organize any promo because he had so much interactive engagement. The engagement rate of his fans was so high that, yeah, it crossed right into his streams, and it crossed right into his following, and it crossed right into his value as a artist. So he was one that was able to do it very well.
Yeah.
I wouldn't encourage everybody to do it this way, but this way went straight with his image. He's a
Yeah.
super happy-go-lucky guy. He's a super cheerful guy that gets along with all these artists in the industry. People love him because he's just a really nice dude. And
Yeah.
so the nice part about him and his, his great relationships with other artists made the life be like, wow, who, like Drake will come in, this person will come, like big stuff. Chris Brown will be in there all the time, like big stars that wasn't charging him to be in there with him. They were just having fun, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
so that's the way to do it. Look at your brand. What's your brand? If your brand is you're super accessible to your fans, this is the time that you need to talk to your fans about everything. What are you wearing when you go to bed? What is your bedtime routine? How do you get up in the morning? You need to show your face with no makeup. You know what I'm saying? Like, pull them in. If that's what you're saying, if you're saying I'm like one with my fans, that's how you got to do it. If you're super mysterious with your fans, this might be the time to be a little less mysterious, still mysterious, but so instead of having a life where everything can just happen and you're pulling in random people, you don't know who you're pulling in, don't do that. But what you can do is, like you said, put a post and say, this is my new artwork, what do y'all think?
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
it will be interactive, but not you talking directly to your fans, because you don't do that for whatever reason. It's not in your image. So that's not what you choose to do. And so you got to look at your image, and you got to look at your profile as an artist and see what fits you as a personality, and then turn it around and then make it in a way that it works for IG, or that it works for Facebook, or that it works for whatever social media platform you're on, TikTok. And that's very important. You can't just all of a sudden go out of character because it's Corona. You still have to think about, what have I portrayed so far, and how am I going to be able to portray the same thing, but keeping it way more interactive, because now I cannot go and perform live. So I'm not seeing my fans and I can't speak to them directly. So what is the digital version of how my relationship is with my fans?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Moving on from this, but still in the area of artists and advice, here in the Middle East, there's a lot of artists who, their music is in Arabic, the hip hop is in Arabic, and I wanted to know, what would you say for Arab hip hop artists is the best practice that they could use to export themselves, knowing that it's an emerging market, first of all, it's in a language that most people maybe around the world don't speak. What should they be focusing on to break out?
I feel like there's always two things. First of all, a practical thing. If you're trying to break out of your language zone, you have to put subtitles in English with your videos. It's just a practical thing,
Okay, that's
because
something.
hip hop is about, yeah, hip hop is about the content, right? Hip hop is about talking about your reality and dragging us into your lifestyle.
Yeah,
If we can't understand it, it's super difficult, right? Even though if you love hip hop, you can see by the intensity of how people spit, the way they finish their punchlines, the way they set up the record, you can tell if this is a happy song, or if this is an aggressive song, or if they're mad about something or whatever. But if you really want to get fans involved, they need to understand what you're talking about. So it needs a translation. That's first of all. And then second of all, what I will do is I will try to collaborate with people in different countries that are at the sort of the same level you are at,
yeah,
and collab with them on songs, because it starts with the music. If you can connect with people on a music level, right, then with other artists in those markets, they have their teams in their markets, and your guys have the people that are rapping in Arabic, they have their teams in their markets. So now you can cross collaborate those teams and those fans from the two different markets, because if fans follow you, and you're doing a collab with somebody from another country, they're going to be curious. They're going to be like, who is this person and why would they collaborate with this person, right? So look for an artist that you feel like caters to the same audience in another market. Approach the artist, whether it's on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. A lot of times it has a business contact sitting right there, or at their YouTube channel, you can just see business contact these people. Explain to them what you're doing, explain to them what you're bringing to the table. You can, for instance, say, okay, I have in the next 3 months, I'm dropping this, and this, and this. I have relationships with Deezer. I have relationships with Spotify. I have relationships with the radio stations. This is what I've done in the past with my own music. So when I collab with you, I can do the exact same thing. And I'm wondering, what are you doing on your side of the world? Because it looks like we're about at the same level of our careers. Do you have the same type of network? If so, let's bring our networks together, and this way we can win. Then when the borders start opening up, and now you're seeing, views from when you look at your analytics, for instance, from Deezer, you can see, okay, well, yes, my views went up in the Netherlands. You know what I mean? My engagement, the people that starting to follow me on my social media platforms are also Dutch. Now, when you see that happening, now it's interesting when the borders open back up and the Dutch artist is performing. Let's see if you can open up for the artist for their performance. Don't charge anything, but just open up for them, right? For maybe 2 songs. And then you come back out when the artist does the song that they have with you. Boom. Yeah. Now the Dutch fans that he already has or she already has now automatically get to know you and get to understand who's behind the song, collaborative song that they've heard from their favorite artist before, and they see the person in person.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I think a lot of artists will appreciate this from here. So I'll definitely be forwarding that to them. One final point before we end it. I wanted to know, what are your thoughts on digital streaming platforms starting to remove the use of the term urban, which is something that they've started mentioning that they're going to do it because they feel it has a negative connotation in today's context. On a personal level, I think that each country has its own context of the word urban. I mean, urban can mean anything. In Lebanon, it means something. In France, it means something. In Holland, so I wanted to know what your opinion was on this, because it's actually, I recently read that it's actually being completely removed from a platform like Spotify. So
Yeah, I, I understand why they will want to do it, but I think it's kind of dangerous because I think it's confusing for the fans, because I think there's a whole generation that grew up knowing that urban music is a combination of, you know, hip hop, R&B, soul, and all these genres that are underneath that umbrella, right? If you all of a sudden remove it, where are they looking for that music, right? They can look at the hip hop playlist, they can look at the R&B playlist, but what about, you know, songs that have R&B and hip hop in it? What about songs that have Arabic undertones but still are, you know, R&B mixed with hip hop, or where dance meets the R&B world? Where do they find all these songs? Because that container name was, at least people understood that they're looking there, they will get some sort of vibe, not
yeah,
necessarily definition of a genre, but a sort of a vibe, a sort of okay, you know, I associate with this, so this is where I get my music because it will match, you know, my vibe or what I want to hear.
yeah,
So I understand. I think it has to do with the whole movement of, you know, Black Lives Matter. So I think you can call it music of Black origin. But
yeah,
see, the confusing part about that is then we have to include rock music, then we have to include country music, because it's all blues music of Black origin, right? And so now it's like, but that's not what people are looking for when they go look for music of Black origin, because they're thinking, okay, there's going to be hip hop and blah, 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 blah.
yeah,
Then I think there's a whole generation that doesn't even realize where hip hop came from. They just
exactly.
like hip hop. So
Yeah,
when you call it music of Black origin, even though it is true, do people go look for it over there? And for streaming services, it's super important for people to understand where they're looking for the thing that they're looking for.
yeah,
Unless you're looking for a specific artist, but if you're looking for a vibe or a certain type of music, you want to know where to find it. So I don't know if it's I get it. I understand why they want to make the statement with, you know, with everybody in the world fighting for Black Lives Matters and all this other stuff, equal opportunities and stuff like that. But I don't know if removing the word urban is definitely gonna be, you know, helping that fight.
yeah. Because I was when I saw it, for me, for instance, I know that in places like Portugal, for example, they do these events called urban roots, and it's a bunch of artists from all over the world. It kind of has a world music connotation, if
Yeah,
you will.
yeah,
Whereas if you see, I have some friends in South Africa. They do these things called urban sessions, where it's exactly what you described. You know,
yeah,
in
yeah.
France, urban means, restricted to artists that have
Listen,
that come from the urban areas of the city. So it really, each context is so different, and I find I think, as you're saying, I think it's a dangerous game to play, to remove a term, because in today's context everyone wants to make a change for Black Lives
yeah,
Matter,
yeah.
and the assumption is this could be a change, without knowing that maybe it might be a negative change by doing this. So
Yeah, yeah, they want
they,
to do something. They feel like they can't sit still, and I agree.
yeah,
I just don't know if this is the
yes,
solution to that particular problem. I
I,
feel like
yeah,
because I used to hate the word, because to me it was just like people deciding for us what our stuff is going to sound like. You know what I'm saying? But because then I understood that marketing wise, it actually helps artists to be like, no, I'm not pop, I'm urban. And then
Yeah.
people in general would know, okay, so that means I have to look for it a little bit on this side of the spectrum. So when I understood that it helped people to differentiate, pop music from urban music, and obviously now it's sort of the same because urban music is so popular that now it became pop music. Really, it's
Yeah.
the main thing in pop music. So I mean, I feel like, especially for streaming service, I feel like it's important that people understand where they are able to find certain stuff.
Absolutely.
So unless they're gonna now call everything the R&B, hip hop, soul, Afro, blah 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 playlist, then I think it's gonna be confusing.
I agree. I agree. Henka, thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
It's been such a pleasure. I really can't wait for us to meet again. I hope that'll be
No,
soon.
where in the world should we meet? How long is it gonna take for you to get out of?
Well, first let's get electricity here, then we'll start. Yeah,
But so
but
how do you have Wi-Fi with no electricity?
I'm using my
Oh,
phone's.
your phone. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
but yeah, crazy times. But anyways, I think I do want to come over and visit Rotterdam,
Yeah.
either at New School Rules or any other time. So whenever I do that, it would be
That
great
would
to
be
meet
great.
up. If not, some other festival.
Somewhere, somewhere
Yeah,
in the world. No, for sure. Be
yeah,
safe.
yeah.
Get your electricity because those are some essentials in life. To you, good luck with it, and I can't wait. Make sure to send me the link when you
Yeah, yeah.
so I
Sure.
can share. Yeah.
All right, cool.
All right.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good
Bye.
day. Bye.